Into MFL with Laird. I am Andrew Laird, joined today by someone who I think some of us think is crazy just on what he's doing on the platform, but we're going to get into all of that. Joining me today is Jonathan, who you also may know as Jay Anthony, who you may also know as Trust the Process, owner of, I didn't see exactly what number you're up now in terms of clubs. I think it's around 46 clubs and over 1,000 players in the agency. Jonathan, really appreciate you coming on today to talk about the craziness.
I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I was telling you earlier, I love talking MFL. The problem is I can only type right now because I can't get friends to play. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity as well.
It's a whole different experience once you can actually start talking to people about it, which is part of the reason I set up this channel, because I really like talking to people about it. And yeah, we just got to get more people to talk about it. Simple as that. Thank you to everybody for coming in. Toby, SR Monkey, Alex Coombs, congrats to you guys as well on the podium. Germ, what's up? Colton, appreciate you guys coming in. Ricky, Sorare Vigo, Tizai Pepteta. So also, for those of you, shout out to everybody who is watching this on the MFL with Laird YouTube channel. I'm dual streaming today. This, I think, will be the last one that is not just on the MFL channel. But thank you to everybody for coming in. Let's just get right into it because I've got so many questions. And you don't have endless time. So, and neither do I. But let's at least go back to when you started MFL and like kind of what brought you in. And then clearly there had to have been a day at some point where you were like, I'm going to have 1,000 players. And I'd love to hear about what that process was like.
Yeah. So I feel like I have a similar story to a lot of people, I think, in the fact that I got like this one email. I was on NBA Top Shot. I think it was an email saying like MFL was getting started. I forget exactly what it was, but I looked into it and I was like, man, this looks cool. So I always loved manager games. I never did Football Manager or any of that other stuff because I didn't know about it. But I love FIFA Ultimate Team, Madden Ultimate Team. I'm here in the US. American football is my first love. And so to me, European football is soccer. Sorry. But
Jimbo has already turned it off.
I know. He was probably not looking forward to that. But yeah, no, it's been, NBA Top Shot's how I got here. And how I kind of progressed along was just looking at things analytically. I'm a numbers guy. And when it comes to looking at this, I'm like, okay, part of the fun for this for me is seeing how can I have fun doing this while also making this sustainable in the long run. I have yet to hit that withdraw button, but maybe one day I will. Because I just keep on seeing more opportunity, I think, to buy in. And I don't know how many clubs I have right now, to be honest. I just keep on, they fluctuate a little bit, but I did just buy one more before the stream started. So we can talk about that too.
Active club or was it a license?
Active.
Ooh.
Yeah. I bought one of Big Wilbert's gold club, soon to be gold clubs. It was silver, but going into gold next season.
Why would somebody sell a club like that?
I think for him, it's because he has too many gold clubs, potentially. I think because he's going to be at capacity and they can't promote. But yeah, just running some numbers behind it, which I can go into more detail with at some point or now, just made sense to me.
So yeah, I'm looking at the leaderboard now. You are at the top at 48. Your 1,023 players is second behind Fortress. Fortress is over 1,400. They only have 38 clubs. So you're winning that. 45 trophies that you have so far, 1.2 million MFL in earnings. How many clubs did you start with?
I guess everyone starts with one. But I think originally early on, especially in those like alpha seasons, I think I was more so around like 7 to 12 for a while. My favorite part about this game is the development. And developing players and seeing them grow. And frankly, I just don't, as much as I trust my own process, I don't trust other people to develop my own players. And so oftentimes I just need more clubs to play those more players. And I think clubs are the most sustainable part of this game. And so owning more of them was never a problem to me.
So I came in basically because of Nepenthes. And I think Nep has 5 clubs now. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get 5 Spark clubs because I think he's the same way. He wants to develop his own players, or at least the lower players as he works his way up. And I think as he works his way up, his higher rated players will stay in his clubs, just that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I have I don't want to say I have two clubs. I have one club and I have a license, and I haven't activated the license yet. I think I'm going to do it, but I do totally understand I should have just have 10 clubs. And I was going to say, like, when does that number become too many? I don't think anybody knows, since you are at the top at 46 and you're just like, yeah, I'll get another
Yeah.
one. Um, how do you manage all of that?
Yeah, I think for me, my priorities are again just getting playing time and development, and having them play in the appropriate divisions too. Usually, when I loan out players, it's kind of my higher end players that I feel like maybe I don't have a spot for in my formations on my team. But I usually run pretty tight ships, like 16, 17 man rosters,
Wow.
um, because I want to maximize playing time and development time. Um, I went on this tangent. I forget your initial question. What exactly were you asking again?
Just like, how do you manage everything?
Yeah. So there's an opportunity where you can kind of have preset tactics, which you may know, you may not, where you can kind of label them. You think you have 5 preset tactics, and so if I can have my rotations be between 4 to 5 different rotations, I just sign on to the team. I hit load tactic and load B tactic. Next day is load C tactic, and so really I'm not scouting. I'll be frank there. Like I'm not looking ahead to other teams. And I mentioned this to you. I'm not the most strategic person when it comes to playing my players. I just want to see them develop and get playing time. And so for me, yeah, if I was trying to scout 40 some opponents, that'd be a lot more time.
It does feel like that. And frankly, I feel like there are plenty of people who get along perfectly fine not overly scouting their opponents. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm sure the people that do it are like, no, you're at a huge disadvantage if you don't do it.
Oh,
But
I think I am. I think I am, especially in the higher divisions.
mhm.
I don't know how. I had like 5 different 1-0 wins in my gold division team. I like one gold division team. I had like 5 1-0 or 1-1 ties to start the year. And I was tied for first in the gold league. And I've since dropped to dead last in the gold league, which, again, I'm not surprised about. But again, I run my analytics thinking, okay, if I get last, this is still worth it.
Mhm.
So, yeah. But yeah, usually going through my rotations on a daily basis only takes me about 20 minutes or so to actually switch all my teams over to a formation that's not having players exhausted or on red cards.
Mhm.
But having 16, 17 man rotations, red cards become a real problem. And so there's sometimes creativity needs to be evolved around that.
When did you kind of get into that mindset that was the sweet spot for a squad? Because I mean, you were commenting to me before, like, my last video was literally like, please help me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm new. I was saying to you, I haven't even played a season yet. I've played Redemption Cup, where I got absolutely blasted by everybody else in my group, and have basically just been living off daily progression, hoping for more and more each day.
Yeah.
But as I look into season 5, I was like, I should really have 20, 23 players in trying to figure out how many to actually use. 17 seems like a much lower number than, not that I was expecting the
Yeah.
right thing to do, but like, that seems really lean to me. Do you
Yeah.
like, how did you end up on that number?
I actually don't mind. We had talked about maybe sharing my screen. I can
Yeah, yeah.
share my screen just so you can see kind of what rotations look like. And I'll even show it for my gold team because this is almost over anyway. Let's see if I can get this to work. I understand compliance.
Yeah, there'll be a few pop-ups there. Yeah, it's just like, that's actually one of the big questions that a lot of people have had in my Discord,
Yeah.
who are starting up, and it's like, how many people do we really need?
Yeah. Again, it hasn't always worked for results. It works better, I think, in lower leagues because you're not, again, being scouted as much. But if we go here, this is where I started the season. I was like, oh, wow, we're actually doing well. But it
Mhm.
was 1-0, 1-0, 0-0, 1-0. But anyway, whenever I go to my tactics here, you can save as certain tactics. I have like A, B, C, D. If you can catch me knowing my right rotations, you can plan for what I'm going to play against you if someone really wants to go in detail. But when I hit load, the next thing pops up. See, I can't have that striker play today. But different formations will allow for less players. And so this
Mhm.
rotating between 5-3-2 and 5-4-1 means I really need 4 guys to cover these 3 spots, 3 guys to cover these 2, 3 to cover these 2, and then 4 to cover these, and a backup goalie. For me, it looks different for different teams, and just jump into a different team
I'm,
hoping it's different.
I'm sorry. Can
But
you pull that back up again? Just
yeah,
like when you, not this one, just the drop down.
yeah,
This,
it's a
that
lot.
is amazing.
And this is the team I just bought from Big
Mhm.
Wilbert. Maybe I can scout some of his tactics now. No, just
There
kidding.
you go.
But there's other formations too. Like this one is 4-3-3, 4-3-3, so cycling out strikers, wingers. Then I can do 4-2-4, resting the cam, and I can do 4-3-1-2, resting the winger. So I don't need a backup winger on either side. So it does take some craftiness whenever red cards do come in, but again, different formations allow for different opportunities to kind of have just 16-man, 17-man ships where they get all the playing time they need to develop. And don't have to worry about it. Again, red cards, when I get a red card for both my LB and RB, maybe I have a 3-back formation that works out. But if I have one that's like correlated positions where I'm resting my CBs or my LBs, and then they both get red cards, that's whenever I have to play. Like I had to play a left winger at center back earlier this year. That was a problem. But
Wow. Wow.
I think I
The,
probably lost that game.
Always saying they have 16 teams now, which that feels like a lot too. So do you tend to run each club the same?
No, I try to, whenever I first make these clubs, I'm looking at their overalls and I'm seeing, okay, what formation can fit within this band of overall players and trying to pick players accordingly. And so I have probably 5 or 6 different rotation schemes depending on the club and what players kind of fall in that band. But I've loved that problem solving and figuring out how to minimize players because then I get to maximize the amount of clubs I get to have for the players that I have. But of the 1,000 I have, I think I have a note here: 210 are in dev jail. So it's not like I have access to all my players right now. But yeah,
Do you do 4 years for all of them?
the vast majority.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I get a mid-season, I'll do just the one season while I can't place them on the current club, or if they're older. But usually the vast majority are 4 seasons.
And are they going to come out like now? Because I know a lot of the early season one, like the early,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have 33 coming out this year.
That's actually
But
a lot fewer than I was expecting.
well, that's because I think I put in about, I don't know, 100 plus after this last season, where I just bought a bunch of common players and threw them in.
Yeah. So it seems like you actually do more club market scouting than you do player market. Like, are you only getting players from packs now?
No, I probably buy, I don't know, a dozen players a year. I usually look for players that have good development. I'll pay that development premium a little bit, but I'll see kind of too if they just got out of the latest tier jail, and see if that's something that maybe they're about to take off more.
Yeah.
But I usually don't buy rares as much. About one today, actually. But that was because I saw he hadn't been used in his 4 seasons. He was just sitting on the shelf for a while. So I'm hoping there's some back end development to be had in that player.
Yeah. So have you figured out sort of a sweet spot of where you want to acquire clubs in terms of the division pyramid?
So I look at, so just I can run through some club numbers as far as how I kind of look at it. Back whenever it was just ice, my goal was if I can make 2,500 MFL a season, I could hypothetically pay off that club purchase in 8 seasons. Because that's 20,000 MFL. There's uncommon player packs for 10,000. They're about $35 each, $70. That was the price of an ice club, if not cheaper. And so, looking to see how I can kind of recoup that. So ice clubs and spark clubs, I think, are going to be great ways to get people in the game and actually recoup your investment early on. Feel the need to say here, this is not financial advice, but this is kind of how I view things.
Sure.
Today, though, for the gold club I bought from Big Wilbert, he has about 100,000 MFL that is going to be going to the owner of the club. And so I'm getting 100,000 MFL from his club this season. He had the price at 600, but it's going to be about $333 of the MFL going to gold next season. Minimum gold winnings is 80,000. That's about 266. So making that 600 back hypothetically in MFL in the next 2 seasons. Now I have to use players to get to that point. I don't know. Have you heard about the trust the process rule that kind of may have been my fault?
Is this from what you did in Diamond?
Yeah.
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 So I've heard.
I don't
I'm
mind
glad
talking about
we can talk about this because I've heard of it. They keep kind of referring to it. Actually, it's more when I'm listening to older When Durkast
it. Yeah.
street or podcast, and it's not that they're old; they're probably just like 2 months old. But
Just last
I'm trying
season.
to catch up.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could, because there are plenty of people who probably don't know about this. If you could explain that, that would be great.
Yeah. So I think clubs have been criminally underpriced for a long time. And I think they might be getting to the point where they're better priced, but usually they do drop going into new seasons when people buy clubs and actually just sell them because they are buying them off of MFL, the website. New packs. This Diamond Club was posted for $7.99, and I did the math and I was like, I can make up that MFL in a couple of seasons just by getting last place in Diamond and last place in Platinum alone. And so I could field it with 50 some overall players, not cost me anything player wise, and just farm MFL for lack of better phrasing. I put out in the Discord being like, hey, this math really makes sense. Would anyone be offended if I did this? Unfortunately, I'll keep this person anonymous. One person did reach out as I was buying the club, and so it was a little too late. But yeah, overall, it was like it harmed their progression, I think 2% when I did the math, and it prevented one person from dropping down out of Diamond. So hopefully that one person I saved was pretty happy. But yeah, just doing the MFL math. Forget our MFL to $1 is usually what I use whenever I know MFL advertises 800 to 1. But when you talk about the packs you can buy and what you can sell them for on either off the marketplace, I think it's more accurate. I just need to actually take the step of selling this packs. I keep opening them. I can't help myself.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed at people who are able to sell packs. Just at the, just at the lack of FOMO, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. That's what
I
happened
appreciate
last
it.
season. Was I was trying to sell uncommon packs to try to recoup some of my investment into the game, and they just weren't selling at the price I wanted them to, and so I ended up just spam buying a bunch of commons instead. And I was like, well, I was gonna take money out this time, but I guess I'm gonna keep money in.
I'm gonna put more in. And I'm sure everybody thanks you for that. So was there any thought of buying the Diamond Club and trying to run it competitively in Diamond?
So there was a brief moment where I thought maybe this was possible. The problem is a lot of people that own Legos are kind of locked in to where they're at, whether that be a reoccurring contract with their own teams or a prearranged agreements with others. And I was kind of advised by a couple people, hey, don't even try this. It's gonna be really hard to be competitive. And in reality, too, like if I was to share my rev share in Diamond, which you need to do, I wouldn't have been able to be confident and be able to recoup my costs for the club. And so really running a 50 overall squad was really my best option to recoup that investment. I think the person originally selling it too, I forget if he was about to enter a second team in a Diamond and couldn't do it, and that's why he had to sell it, or what. But it sat in the marketplace for some time, and I kind of said, "Hey, this math makes sense. I don't know if anyone wants to do it." And I was like, "You know what? I should do it," and I did it. But
so what's the rule that they instituted as a result of your move?
There is minimum overall requirements for all but 5 of your players for a club, and so it's made, I think, the game better. Frankly, it's a matter of like, hey, there was this loophole, now let's close it. But I also think them changing the reward structure itself actually de-incentivized doing what I did anyway. Because I think clubs naturally have now increased in price, and you want to compete at those levels anyway. I've had some clubs where I got stuck with where I feel it's basically a minimum overall bronze club this past year that got, I think, 2 points all season because I kind of got stuck in a lurch with the club itself after the rule came out. But I think the game's better for it. And so I'm definitely not upset about it at all. But I'm not upset that I got to capitalize on it for the moment either.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that you're openly you're kind of open that you found this loophole and appreciate that you knew that this loophole was probably a negative and that they addressed it and we're moving on.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask everyone too. And before I did it, I was like, "Hey, any Diamond managers gonna be upset about this?" I heard back from I think half of them before I made the decision because I just talked in Discord how good of an idea it was. I don't want someone else to buy the club from underneath me after I said the math
Sure.
works. But yeah, I think them increasing the rewards. I don't know if you knew about that. Going into season 4, they actually boosted the rewards a good bit all throughout the pyramid, and I think that definitely helped too with increasing value up top
Mhm.
for those clubs. So yeah.
So do you have like preferred clubs within your or clubs technically in your agency, but basically like, do you
Yeah,
have favorite clubs of yours that you either spend more time on or more resources on in order to get them moving up the ladder?
I'll still try to have everything be according to where they should be, and as far as like I'm usually fielding my stone level players in stone before they
Mhm.
go to ice. But I do put a little favoritism towards certain clubs and others. Being my Dublin clubs, part Irish, and so I think either 2 or 3 Dublin clubs right now. Um, but also trust the process Philadelphia. I mean, I have to favor that one. Being from Pennsylvania myself and being a Sixers fan, terrible season, but um, yeah, I do want to go that one. I got that one nice. It's in stone now, but had a pretty bad year, despite I think putting my better stone players in there. I do feel bad for those though that I do well in some leagues. Like my Italy team, for some reason, is in first or second right now. Whenever I feel like the people are trying harder than me to do well, so that's the variance of the game. At the same time, you throw enough chips on the table, eventually some of them are going to win.
Sure, sure. So do you like this upcoming off season, do you kind of reassess where all of your players are? Do you tend to keep certain players with certain clubs?
This is the first year I have some auto renewals set. I want to keep some of that process going. That way, I'm not restructuring all teams again.
Right.
Especially with the preset tactics I have in place. I'm hoping it makes year-to-year seasons easier. But I will look to see what players developed really well. Like I had a player that played an ice that was plus 10 this year, which is just crazy. That all came in the second half of the year too, which is I don't know how that happened, but um, he went from 63 to 72, and so he's going to have to move.
Yeah.
There's other guys too that are like +6 or something like that, enough where they need to change teams. And so I'll look at that. But in general, I'm going to try to keep most of the teams the same.
How often do you check player progression?
Oh boy, at least 3 times a day.
Okay.
Every morning when I wake up before I even get out of bed. And then probably sometimes middle of my games because I have a lot of ice teams, and so I usually check after all the ice games are over, and then I'll
Yeah.
check again after the main games are over. If it's one of those days where it has both cup and um, league games, then I'm checking even more than that. But that's
Okay.
also going to do rotations midday.
Okay, that's good because for a quick second I thought you were going to say like 3 times a week, and I was like, oh, I guess it gets to the point where like the progression gets boring, but like that's clearly not. I
Yeah,
will say, being in the US and the having the initial training progression happen basically before we wake up, being able to wake up and see it is really fun, and being able
yeah.
to check it later after all the matches are played. It's like a perfect timing sweet spot, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
So there've obviously been some big changes on the platform in the last, I'll call it, month, where the number of users has gone up pretty considerably. As somebody who's played the game for a while and is obviously I hate to say that you're very invested in it, because that sounds like it's only for the money, even though you are kind of doing a lot of that. But you've obviously spent a lot of time on it over the last few years. From your perspective, like how are you viewing kind of how the platform looks now with all of these new faces?
yeah. I think it's been great. I've had a lot of fun seeing a lot of the Sorare guys come over and just seeing how much it's broadening MFL's reach. It's been really cool. It is nice to see some of the same faces for a while and seeing how we have had some very sustainable players in the game for a long time. Um, but also seeing the new ones come in and their excitement and their passion to kind of see their club grow and everything is a lot of fun. Um, but as far as like how it's grown since like the alpha seasons, I think I played probably like an alpha 0.1, but I actually took a break in the middle of alpha seasons just for the sake of like, man, I'm just excited for player development and stuff. And there was no development in alpha season, so I don't know how back you're listening to the Wender cast goes, but um,
Not
so
that
I
far.
as soon as progression started, um, it meant a lot to me because it's what I was looking forward to the most. So
Makes sense. Um, Yeah, I just, as one of the new people, I always just kind of wonder what everyone who has been around thinks, because from what I can tell, like player prices are moving up. Like demand is now the demand supply ratio is now kind of more heavily favored towards demand, and
Mm.
so is like player value something that you usually pay attention to,
Mm.
or is it something now that you're just like, now you pay attention to it because you hear everybody talking about how, oh, I sold this 58 rated player for $70, and everyone's like, what? Like what
Yeah.
and like,
No, I do look at player value. Whenever I'm looking at the marketplace and looking at players in particular, I'll average out how many years they have left, and try to look at what division they could go in, and think, can this player be profitable? I don't necessarily want to buy players that I think are going to help me for a short period of time and then in the long run lose me value.
yeah.
And so I'll usually, again, sticking at 300 to 1 MFL to $1 ratio, I'll be like, can this player generate enough MFL to compensate for their cost? Um, and I do usually see, um, I think younger players are great, but I do feel like some older players are being undervalued. It just really depends on where people have them and what division you think they can play in. That's another thing too, is how much um, the talent gap has increased, but the talent has increased in each division up substantially over the last few seasons, where a team that I felt like was once competitive in gold is now dead last. So
Yeah.
it's been a learning curve in that sense too, and so trying to keep up with that is important too, because I don't want to evaluate a player that I think could progress in the next division, but in reality, everyone's progressing, and so they're probably going to stay in the same division as far as what they can play in.
And have you kind of seen that? I mean, obviously you're referencing that each division, the quality seems to go up. I feel like this upcoming season is going to be, I hate to use the term broken, but it feels like it might be broken before we've even started, because most, I assume most of the new users who came in are playing Spark,
Yeah,
and those that are focusing on just getting out of Spark as quickly as possible are going to have guys who are in the, I mean, I've seen a bunch of people who are like, is this good enough to start? And it's like the ratings gap is like 64 to 75, and it's like, you're going into the lowest division. So yeah, if this is not good enough, we're like, the rest of the pyramid is in trouble.
yeah,
So I, as somebody who is starting in Spark, I feel like it's going to take a couple seasons to normalize. And does it
yeah.
feel like the upper divisions have normalized and there's just kind of this expected ratings growth every year, or does that also feel pretty in flux?
Yeah, we've been through this challenge before with ice. So originally there was just the stone division, and then they added ice
Mm-hmm.
below that, and we did have several years, and still sometimes now, several seasons where there's overpowered teams in ice. I think reorganizing the, again, reward structure really helped with that. I was kind of a big advocate for that. Um, Not on the level some people made like spreadsheets to send MFL. I didn't do that, but I think the reward structure has really incentivized teams that can play in higher divisions to do so. At least analytically, it makes sense. I do think there's going to be definitely some Spark divisions that have higher rated teams than Ice divisions. Like, I think there's more competitive teams. Maybe not the right word for it, but I would definitely encourage you, if you feel like, you as in the general population, that if you feel like your team could compete at a higher division, to go get that MFL. Um, I for one might be looking to drop down a couple of my Ice teams down to Spark for, I don't know, so like $10 difference or something like that. Just because at the end of the day, you want to be competitive with the right teams too. I think if anyone that likes to win, you also want to win against the right competition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also understand I'm not one that needs to have a new license. Obviously, a lot of my licenses I bought used, um, but I understand the road to creating a new team and seeing its whole history. But if you can get past that, I think moving up divisions early just by buying up is worth it to you.
I I was like laughing at myself that you referred to it as a used license as opposed to just like an established club, and
Nope, they're used. Yep.
you're used. Yeah. The So with that, like you're saying, you're considering getting some Spark teams. Is it just because you have lower rated guys, you just want them to play?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid to play lower rated guys in ice either. But I've I think of my I don't know I think I have 20 mid-20s ice clubs. Probably a, a quarter of them are probably last place or second to last place, and so I know they're going to probably do even worse next year if they can do worse. And so I think playing them in Spark, where they might still get last, will at least help them develop better.
So do you look at progression as the sort of the pinnacle goal of your all of your players, or is it kind of what's the best way I can win as much MFL as possible, and progression is kind of the second, like almost a byproduct of that move?
Yeah, for me, progression is king. Like I want
Okay.
to maximize that as much as I can. The only difference being, like, if I'm at the end of a season and a player has maybe 2 games played than another player, I'll still play that better player to try to get to the next position up in the standings. But I don't think I have a single player in any of my clubs that have played less than 15 games this season besides backup goalies. Most have probably played right around 20, if not more.
And it seems like that's pretty directly attributed to the 17-man roster, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and the 17-man roster in general hurts me in the sense that I'm more predictable for some of my lineups. I'm not as energized for some of my players, especially whenever I have a red card that makes a guy play in his 80% energy because I couldn't make that rotation.
Right.
So it hurts me in that sense, but I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my players if I don't let them develop fully. So
That's
gotta do that for the players, you know.
I'm going to ask about loans, but I want to keep going on this.
Yeah.
What's the end game? Is it more you want to just develop a bunch of players, and then at some point maybe you do have enough players that are good enough for Diamond, or like what's the or plat wherever the ceiling you think is the reasonable ceiling? Like what's the goal of all the progression for you?
Yeah, I think the goal of it all is to be able to have an agency that's still solid as far as quantity, but be able to get my investment back. I keep on delaying that process. But I still feel like this game has so much more to grow, and I don't feel like it's going anywhere at all. That I'm not afraid to keep on um, pushing and moving forward and not kind of pulling money out. Um, but the end goal is to be self-sustaining, and the fact that I have got my money back and how that looks like, I think, is eventually. I have FOMO. I don't want to sell my players that even if they haven't developed well. So I probably purchase 10 players for every one I sell. Um, Hence my 1,000+ players. But so I think how that looks like is selling them in these reward packs before I even get to see them. Whenever I actually have, whenever the value is actually there, I think to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that common players right now are selling for $3 or $4 a piece on floaty is, or not, yeah, floaty is just wild to me. But I think it's what the game demands now.
Mm-hmm.
I commented on your last YouTube video saying there's only like 5 $1 players left. It's just wild to me. But it's a great thing to see at the same time.
I think they're gone forever.
Yeah, they're definitely gone forever.
I said that to Jimbo, and he was like, "No, there's surely there are some." And I don't think anybody. I think anyone who like lists a card for $1, that card will be bought within minutes. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
I
yeah,
would even argue like seconds because I feel like people are just
it
always
could be,
looking at the
yeah.
marketplace now. Yeah.
So how often do you get contacted about taking people wanting your players on loan? Because I feel like a lot of the advice that I have gotten over the last 2 weeks, as people are kind of as season 4 winds down,
Mhm.
window's going to open soon. Everybody's got to fill all their Spark teams, and I've had multiple people like, "Hey, look at the people that just have tons and tons of players because they love to loan them out. You have tons and tons of players, and you tend not to loan them out. But how many offers do you tend to get anyway?"
Yeah. No, it's a lot of offers. I appreciate the opportunity now to like kind of have desired percentage, but also contract minimums. Because who knows, I may loan out some players. But yeah, I last season going into the season, I think I only had about 12 to 15 players that I loaned out, and a lot of those are higher end players. Um, And so I think people definitely see my amount of players and they don't think about my amount of clubs. And
Mhm.
I have to use a lot of those players for my own clubs. Again, it goes also back to the trust part of the proposition too. If it's someone that knows been in the game for a while that I've had conversations with, I'm more likely to loan to them because we've built that kind of rapport. Those that are just getting started, I think there are some auto accept contracts that are out there to scout in the scouting page. Um, but it is one of those things where I think you got to be in the Discord, one of the Discords, whether that be the general Discord, Wendirks, or I know Saramble has a Discord, um, something like that to help have that conversation going. Or
Mhm.
your Patreon, I don't know how much you guys have as far as private conversations in there, but yeah, I would not recommend reaching out to me for players typically, to be honest. So I
Well,
also have a minimum ask of 5% typically. So
yeah. So I bring that up because something that you said earlier was you I don't think you said I don't trust. I think you said you don't necessarily want to have to trust someone else to develop your player. And
mhm.
it reminded me of I think it's literally the last two videos that Nepenthe has posted that his like Cornelius card is progressing like mad this year and not really playing that much. And he
Yeah,
spends
I
like
did watch that video. Yeah,
yeah, like he's spending time just like, why is this guy not playing? But ultimately, that's what happens when you do loan players out. Like you have completely given up the uh, sort of the oversight on their development, and so it just makes a ton of
yeah,
sense. And obviously, I don't think everybody is going to be in the position to say, I want to have 46 clubs, but if progression is kind of the peak of what you want to do, being able to set up your agency and your clubs yourself is really the best way to kind of not that you can ensure progression, but you can at least
yeah,
ensure that what can maximize progression takes place.
yeah. Like probably two of my three highest players that I have loaned out this year aren't hitting their contract minimums. They're like 15 game contracts. They're going to get like either somewhere between 10 to 14 games. I looked at. There's some pretty juicy extra clauses on that. Like I'm getting plus 7% for one and plus 6% I think for the other. But it still drives me mad because I'm like, these are young players that have developed well that I kind of entrusted with somebody. So yeah, I it definitely makes you a second guess before you'll ever loan out to them again, to be honest. But
Sure.
um, that's why I want to look for places in my agency to have them, or I'm sooner to sell them. It's that middle ground between I hate selling things, the FOMO of their development, missing out on it, but also the FOMO of what if they don't play my guy, he doesn't develop like he should, and I lose value in that sense.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
And so the best way to solve both of those things is just to play them yourself.
So one of the issues that I'm having, which I literally did a video on, was you obviously want to have good players in your club.
Yeah,
And those players that are at the top of your club rating wise obviously will not be able to train with players who are better than them.
yeah,
And but it's every club has best players. And so it feels like you're relying so much on the match XP and hoping they're in the right division so that they're playing against good players. But do you have like how do you decide which best players go into your teams, or because it's essentially like, do you want them to be the best player on, on a
yeah.
ice team or the worst player on a stone or in the middle? Like how do you with that many players, like how do you prioritize who gets the best progression paths?
Yeah. So part of it, players I'm going to keep in house, I'll look at their past progression so far to date. Like I had one center back who's been plus 27 in the first 4 seasons. He's my second best player, second best progressive player.
Right.
But I saw he's progressing well, and so this year I put him on a club that he'd allowed room to grow before he kind of became middle or highest in the group. And so it's a matter of pre-planning in that sense. Um, as far as like loaning out some players that have good progression, like my best player, my favorite player, Fred Bajilsma, or however I don't even know how to say it because I've always just read it. So again, I'll talk to people about it. He's plus 29. He's gone from 58 to 87. He's like dream card. But I haven't been able to. Yeah, there it is. Plus 29. Yeah, I haven't been able to use him in my agency recently because I don't have a left. I don't have a right winger to match with him. And
Mm.
so he's been loaned out to Big Wilbert the last couple of seasons, which has been great because I've been able to trust him because he's played him well. I've tried to talk to him about getting 20 games for him, and he's like, "Man, that's too hard in this higher up division." I'm like, "I understand. 15 games is great." but he's playing with the right amount of the right players, and so he's developing well enough. If you click on him, look at his progression path. It's just so fun to look at. But since he become Lego, it's been a little bit less.
Sure.
But it was pretty much every tier break or off season where it was only breaks for a while. And then, yeah, it's I get lost talking about these things because I don't get to talk about this enough. So cut me off whenever you want me to.
No, not at all.
Yeah, we can move on to your next question, whatever.
It was just kind of funny how you were like, I actually don't know how to say it because I never have to say it out loud. And I was like, I have so many players like that I go to do a video and I'm like, I've never said this word out loud. But one of the things that it was on a When Durcast, and I think I mentioned it to Jimbo, and I was like, I've listened to too many too quickly, so I never remember like who the guest was, and so I don't remember which episode it was. But one of them, Calva was saying that it felt like the increase in users is pushing the price of young players, regardless of rating, much higher than it should be, and the older players are obviously not going as high. And one of the things that Calva said was like, if you buy a 40 rated player, regardless, they're 18, 19, whatever it is, getting a 25 point progression over whatever the time is a lot. Like 25 is a lot. And you're still only at 65 at that point. But like, I'm looking at this and I was like, started at 58, which is not like, there are 58 cards everywhere. Yeah. And now it's 87 after 3 seasons. And you're just like, man, it can happen.
Yeah, no, he's been my pride and joy in this game. And then if you look at Bozic, he's someone that I bought for $3 when I first got him, because I saw he had +2 within the first day or so of season 1, and so I bought him, and I was like, maybe he'll progress well, and it's been fantastic. But
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
this looks like it's like a quarter of the season.
Yeah, so like I said, I think it was like within the first couple of days MFL started, I looked to see what players have progressed one or like +2 already. Mm-hmm. He was the main one that I kind of saw. I actually remember where I was whenever I bought him, so it's that kind of moment. So
I love that. Yeah, I absolutely love it.
But yeah,
I will bar stash the key to progression.
Probably. Maybe the rest of this and just do it myself. And then, there's a +10 guy for this season. If you filter, you can see like how he's just progressed insane this season. And again, it was someone that didn't start for a while. But now I got to get him out of my ice team so he can develop better.
Well, so what's funny is that I think we're going to see players like this in Spark.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of players now in the game. And I mean, this is not something that's going to be super uncommon. I think we're going to see, especially people don't want to talk about it, like me. I'm like, hey, look at this player. Mm-hmm. But as far as like age-wise and valuing players in that age range, I did some numbers before I joined here. 94% of my players are 26 and under, and so I do still very much value young players and progression and opportunity to grow. And so, yeah, I mean, I have seen the market, and I have sold a couple of 16, 17-year-olds because I felt like they were overvalued. Mm-hmm. Especially low commons, like Calvo was saying. I don't know if you can see my sales, but there's a couple in there that are like low commons that are like probably shouldn't have sold that high, and you almost feel bad selling them for that price. But if again, it's supply and demand, right? Yeah. If someone wants to pay for it, I'll let them. But yeah, that being said, my DMs in Discord are pretty much always open. I just can't guarantee I'm always going to respond quickly. Just depends on kind of what else is going on in life. Got a 3-month-old, trying to run a business here too, so all that stuff.
Josh saying, is that the first player you've had 2 double ratings jumps in the same season?
Is he?
Which player was that? Was that for Vidic?
2 double. Yeah, I guess he did jump 2. See, limited players just came into the system, and so I really haven't, as far as limited bracket, really just started becoming a thing, and so I really haven't really seen if it's been the first time doing two breaks.
It's crazy. This was earlier from Josh, actually. It sounds like you separate 2 investments: players you value progression, and clubs that you value MFL. Is that how you would judge return for each of them? And that's how you judge. Is that fair?
I'm gonna read the question just to confirm.
I didn't read that question well at all. Sorry. Basically, the player value is through progression and club value is through MFL.
Yeah, club value for me is what can I get out of this club and how long does it take? There is a factor where, like, whenever I say I got this soon-to-be gold club and I'm getting this amount of MFL this season and guaranteed for the next season, I am still sacrificing or using one season of 16, 17 good players. And so it's not like it's a full-on making my money back in 2 seasons because I'm using a year of those players. So I don't want people to think it's that. But it's easier to do for ice leagues because typically a lot of my ice players were bought for $1 or $2 a while ago. I don't know how possible that is right now, but in general, I still feel like you can get clubs and get around 2,000 to 2,500 MFL in a season and be able to get your club value back in about a year of real life, which isn't too bad.
There are plenty of. Well, I was going to say plenty, and now I'm not sure there's plenty. Depends what your definition of plenty is of $2 players.
Yep, I've looked.
But the $1 floor is gone forever.
Yeah, and that's where it makes sense to have common floaty packs increasing price because there is that upside of getting someone younger, and so I'm probably going to if prices always drop pretty substantially on floaty whenever packs are first released. Because everyone's trying to sell their packs right away. And then prices typically go up in the long run. So just advice to the beginners out there. But who knows? Each season's going to carry its own sort of wave of prices. It's hard to really, like, I never saw $1 players going away. That was never my forecast, or else we all would have bought them all beforehand.
Right.
And then sold them for $2 and double your ROI. But yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening. Josh was saying Vidic had 2 days where he got a +2 in the same season. That's what it was.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, those are good days.
And how do you search progression on the marketplace?
I wish it was a simpler process and just clicking on each name and then clicking on each name and then seeing their progression chart. If they have like the slight arrow, it means they've increased one recently. If it's like this, then I'm like, maybe they've increased a good bit recently. And those are the players I'll look at in more detail.
But ultimately, it's still just clicking on every player in the marketplace?
Clicking on every player.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why I usually do limit my searches to players that maybe just hit tier breaks or stuff like that. Like usually I look at 66s and 76s and 56s that maybe they just hit 75, now they're at 76, and maybe they're taken off. And so maybe look at those players.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
They're all going to go away.
That was one of the things that I've always been very curious about, that it seems like we know that the time, theoretically, the time to progress to become a tier breaker is longer than every other step. At least that's the belief. I think that's what we think. It seems like you prefer guys who have already broken the tier and are now going up, as opposed to who could be breaking. Like you would prefer 66 rated player versus 64.
Again, it comes down to cost typically, but I do like seeing those 66s that hit 65 a day or two ago and now are 66 already.
Okay.
That to me shows they could potentially be about to take off. It doesn't always work out, but it's nice to hope for. Because 64, I've had players that have had 64 for a whole season. And so it's hard to know exactly when they're going to turn over. If they will turn over. So
it's funny that, because the way that I started, at least, I say that as if I've done this for years. But I was pretty much filtering the market of guys at 50, like who were just at 54, just at 64. And I was like, oh, maybe if I can get them before they break. And then when they break, I was going to say I would sell them, but I know myself, I'm not selling anybody. But I just couldn't really figure out if that had any merit to it whatsoever. Like, is a 64 rated player that much, is a 65 rated player that much better than a 64 that I would like in the game, that it's worth making that change? And then I look at my club that I'm trying to run.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there's some guys who are too good, so I'm going to get them out. But my highest rated guy now is 64. And I was like, if I keep him, he's now my best player. So he's not going to progress as quickly. And so maybe he'll never get, maybe he'll get 65 in 3 years because he's just playing with a bunch of scrubs.
I will say sometimes I do look at my players and be like, hey, who hasn't progressed? All right, you're going to be one of the top guys on the team. And that way, if they're not going to progress anyway, it doesn't hurt as much. Or if they're older, if they're one of my 27, 28-year-olds, like, maybe your time's already up. Let's put you on a team you're going to help boost the overall average to everyone else.
How many players have you had that retired?
No players in the game have yet retired.
Sorry, have you gotten any? Not retired. Have you gotten any that have gotten you've got 3 years left?
No warnings yet. No, because
I guess you said
94% are 26 and under.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating maybe a couple coming up just based on pure bad luck, but I feel like I only have maybe 1 or 2 guys that are even 30 or close to it. I don't even know how many chances I've had to have a guy that has a 3-year warning, because I'm looking at my agency now, but maybe you're pulling it up. I have no idea. It's loading. Sometimes it takes a while to load players.
It takes a while to load 1,000 players.
Yeah.
Let's see. All of these guys will be 30 next week. But none of them have the 3-year.
And really, most players. So Noble I packed. Gosselin I bought at 25. I think I bought him for $50. And for right back, left back utility, it just seemed like it was too good to have pass up on. Otherwise, I don't think I've ever bought anyone over the age of like 27, 28, 20, probably 27. It's probably the oldest I've bought.
Do you think that there's this is probably an impossible question. I'm going to ask it anyway, but do you think that there is going to end up being what some sort of calculated discount on guys that have that 3 years left that we know? Like, obviously we know that these guys don't last forever, but we do expect them to last a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden, when you have this guy has 3 seasons left, I'm curious if it's like, all right, he drops by 50%, or if it's not that much. Like three seasons, as somebody who has been waiting for season 5 for what feels like a year.
Yeah.
It feels, and yet everybody I talk to is like, no, seasons fly by, but 3 seasons seems like a long enough time. And I feel like the reason I ask is because those were the types of guys I thought, if I can just get cheaper guys who are retiring and have them be my best players, at least rating wise, that kind of helps everyone else, even though they're not progressing at all.
I think it's a dangerous game to play. People that want to win right now, I think are overpaid for those guys than I think they should.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, it comes down to the calculation as far as finishing mid-table in a division. What division would they play in? If I can get 5% for them, how much MFL is that? That MFL for 3 seasons. What's the value of that MFL I could earn from them?
Yeah.
I think right now, maybe some older guys might be a little bit undersold. I feel like as people get accustomed to older players being in the game, I think that's just one thing to keep in mind. I actually have a whole spreadsheet that I kind of have as far as this is how much MFL I need from this division for this player cost with this many years on average remaining in his life. Life sounds aggressive until retirement, but who knows what retired players may still have some use. I know there's still some plans for that maybe in the future. I just don't know what sort of tangible value they'll have.
Yeah. So when you're looking at, how much MFL you can win for a certain club in a certain league before the season, obviously the gap between first and last is quite large in terms of reward.
Yeah.
How do you just take an average of, as if you're mid-table, or do you actually think of the strength of the team that you're putting in? You said your diamond one, that was going to come in last, but like, if you're last, so you know exactly how much you're going to be able to spend, or how much MFL you're going to get. How do you kind of do that preseason to say this team can return this much in this year, and then next year, and then next year?
Yeah. So just doing some. So typically I'll expect the worst case scenario for myself, and then profit from the best case scenario, or anything better than that. And so typically, whenever I'm factoring in club prices or club kind of hopes as far as MFL gain, I'm going to look at last place in the table or second to last, because usually there could always be one team that kind of just stops paying attention throughout the year. Usually you can still beat them. But whenever I'm preparing to loan a player out, I'm expecting them to finish mid-table typically. Just to be like average, but I'll scout their team ahead of time, be like, okay, what other players do they have? Will my player develop well on that team? And ask for about 5%, because 5% for me, if I can't get at least that, typically I'm better off having them in my own club.
Yeah.
Finishing the bottom, 5% is the value of which would be about mid-table for somewhere else. Just based off of 16 players, being able to field a whole roster is more like 8% per player or something like that, as far as player value to me. So if I can get mid-table, that's 5% somewhere else. If you're following all that.
Yeah.
All that math.
And since you have teams or clubs throughout the pyramid, how often do you come across, or are you in a league where clearly somebody has given up and the team is just sitting there? Like, I know obviously they're trying to do 12 teams, but at some point everywhere there are going to be teams that people started and they maybe it just wasn't for them, or they just don't have the time, whatever it is, that there are teams that, unlike yours, that are kind of purposely just sitting at the bottom, those that just like kind of give up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm purposely sitting at the bottom, but just calculating in the probability.
Fair.
Some teams end up down there, and I know they're going to happen. Sorry, I corrected there, and I forget what your initial question was.
Just like how many dead clubs are there out there? It seems like you see a lot in each. You see a lot of clubs,
less
a lot of leagues, because you're in a lot of clubs.
Yeah, I would say less that each year goes by. Each season that goes by, there's less dead clubs. I think that's because they've all fallen down to ice at this point. Typically, if you're not going to pay attention, typically they're going to fall down. They're going to be down in Spark eventually, and so Spark may have quite a few, especially with these new users coming in. The fact is, not everyone's going to love the game as much as they initially thought, and maybe stop paying attention, or of the time that they thought they were going to have to manage it. But yeah, I wouldn't say I've ever seen more than like one dead club per league, but it's probably more of an average, in my opinion, of like one every 3 or 4 leagues now, especially higher up. I don't think there's any dead clubs in gold or anything like that.
Sure.
I think there was maybe one last season, and that was someone that was still actively playing that just felt like it wasn't worth trying anymore.
So I know we're getting close to time here, so I just want to have, I have 1,000 more questions, but the last one maybe.
I got 15 minutes, but you tell me how much time you have.
All right. So I keep going back and forth about whether I want to buy, and I'll use the term established club, not just an old one.
Used.
Used, sure, yeah. It seems like I've noticed a lot of clubs that are clearly getting relegated. I mean, we have 1 game left, so like a lot of the leagues, they know the relegation is there. Is obviously how much MFL you will get right away by buying a club is a concern. Do you stay away completely from clubs that are going to get relegated, or if it's you want a nice club and you're like, wait, this Stone club's going to get relegated, and you're willing to buy that one? Like, how do you look at those types of clubs? Because it feels like, as I'm looking on the marketplace, it feels like every club I click on, it's like, oh, they're getting relegated, and I can't really decide. Obviously, I don't want to pay the price of a Stone club if in 2 days it's going to be an Ice club, but how much do you how much effort do you put into figuring out where that will be next year, and if the prices kind of make sense from that respect?
Yeah. I think right now I'm only looking at the higher end clubs, being platinum, gold, silver.
Sure.
Platinum, I don't even think I could feel a team for actually anymore. But gold, for example, I think seeing up front MFL is helpful. Definitely making sure whenever you're buying a club, clicking on clicking on the squad and seeing how much rev share they're actually going to keep. Because I've seen some like, oh, I could buy that club and get that MFL now, but they have like 90% locked in to players. So definitely make sure about that. But I do genuinely think that Ice clubs and Spark clubs and maybe even Stone clubs in general, prices will drop here whenever people can buy more clubs because usually at the end of every season, MFL might do a thing where, hey, you can buy another club. A lot of people will do that because they get the player pack that comes with it. Maybe and then they want to see maybe if they get a good location and like location I don't care about, let's sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we usually see floors drop on clubs going into the next year. And people that know that are probably upset at me for sharing it. People that are new, there's your gift. But I could be wrong at the same time. I don't know if prices will actually drop. They naturally will once MFL reward is received by that club, if they have reward to kind of keep. But yeah, I would personally wait before buying any Spark or Ice clubs right now, at current cost. I say that as I'm trying to sell one. So if you want to buy mine, feel free. But
Which one are you trying to sell?
I'm selling a Tunisia club. I have no real attachment to Tunisia, and it finished last place, but it has some MFL. So for those that want MFL going into this window, it's I think it's one of the best priced ones for MFL coming in the Ice division.
Right. So it's what you brought up. This is what happened previously. I was tagged on this today, but basically, Alexei from MFL Assistant posted this about the rise in club owners, and not to say that everybody is wrong, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
But this is what happened previously. I feel like, not that it doesn't apply anymore, but it doesn't feel like this huge increase in users, I feel like, may change what everybody knows what happens after seasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's how I feel about player packs too. Like maybe prices won't drop from where they currently are because people need those players to fill these Spark clubs and the clubs about to buy in this off season. Yeah, so who really knows? I personally taking the stance where I'm going to wait to buy any more Ice or Spark clubs unless they have MFL that I can calculate the cost and it makes sense to buy them now. But yeah, who really knows? That's the game's ever evolving. I love it in that sense too. All you can really do is do your best to predict and try to. That's why I'm more into thinking what's worst case scenario.
Yeah,
and trying to make profit from there if I can. And I say make profit. I love this game for the development. I love everything about it, the community. It's not in it just to try to make money, but if I can make my money back, I'd be happy.
Well, I'm going to stay on that for a quick second, because it seems like that's the goal at some point. Like get my money back, self-sustaining club, and I assume you just continue to play after that. It's not like you're just like, well, made it back. All right, I'm all done. But I would assume that this influx of new users has probably pushed prices of cards that you bought well higher than what you bought. And so has there been any thought of maybe instead of 1,000 players, I have 600-700, and the potential of selling those 400, which just saying that is overwhelming, just thinking of trying to actually do that. But could that be enough? Not to like ask how much you've spent on it, but like, could that make a pretty sizable dent, and you still 600 players is still a pretty reasonable number?
Yeah, I think it was middle of maybe last season. I did some rough calculations as far as kind of what I could get out of the game if I just cashed out basically everything right now. Again, that'd be a long process in itself.
Yeah,
but I think I have at least double or triple of what I've put in value with my players right now, players and club overall assets.
Right.
And so yeah, I feel like I could probably sell off all my uncommon players or all my rare players and get all my money back, along with some clubs. But for me, it's not about that. It'd be cool if this is some sort of thing where I think, because I have this flexibility within the next several seasons where I don't have players retiring currently, so I could kind of stay where I'm at and just sell off packs to those that do need them for new players. But who knows what I'll actually do? Again, pack ripping is one of those things where it's just so fun that's hard to kind of not actually do. But I think I can buy hundreds of common players, so I can at least open up a couple myself and then sell the rest if I want to.
Is there any sort of like, do you still get the excitement of buying the lower end guys and or like the lowest packs and figuring out kind of what's going to happen after that?
As far as like pack drops go or
Yeah.
reward packs? Or I mean, this past drop was the first time I actually didn't get a rare pack in a long time, or even a standard. Um, so I got like a limited and a common player pack. I still got those two, or whatever the two lowest ones are. Yeah, so I still buy those. It's still that excitement to see what could be in there if you get those
Mhm.
random upgrades. Um, but yeah, even I think I did rip around 150 or so common players at the end of last season. Everyone was still enjoyable, just to see kind of, okay, what position are they? What's their rating? How young are they? If they're over 26, I'm just disappointed. But yeah, it really is. And so I was like, I wonder if I could just somehow get myself to over the next 3 or so seasons to sell all my player packs or the vast majority of them. And maybe by then I have some players retiring and I buy player packs to replace those players, sort of
Mhm.
thing. But I think this window coming up is my best chance to bite the bullet and just sell packs opposed to ripping them all.
Yeah, yeah. Why not just sell everyone that you got at 26 and older?
Because so I have done some of that, but even then, I feel like there's some room for progression in some of those players. Like
Sure.
people don't reach their peak until on average 30, I think it was, or something like that. And so there's still that FOMO of missing out on those players. But yeah, I recently posted a handful of low overall 20-some-year-old, 26-year-old or so players on the marketplace for like $2 or $3 just
Mhm.
to get something. But yeah,
Uh, all right, I'll finish with this. We're coming into the end of season 4.
yeah.
Literally, I think it's today.
Today's the last day of the league.
It's today,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you figured out what you're doing for season 5 yet? I feel like a lot of the preparation that I've seen people do is if you have to go out and get loans, or they have to loan a bunch of their players out. But it seems you clearly try to do everything in a house. So, like, do you know exactly what you're doing for season 5 yet?
Exactly, no, because some of it depends on how club marketplaces change price wise. I'd like to get back up to 50 clubs. I think it's just a fun number to have.
Mhm.
Um, I sold off a handful during the middle of this season to new users that were coming in that wanted to get involved right away. Um, but yeah, getting up to 50 would be nice. And then ideally having my roster set up so they're on auto renewal every season and just moving players here or there going forward is my goal. Because man, I spent way too many hours before the start of the season making all my teams. So trying to make it more time efficient is
Sure.
my main goal, I would say, actually, right now, while still having an opportunity to manage as many clubs as I do and as many players as I do.
I mean, I imagine everybody would appreciate the amount of time it takes to do all of that. So,
Yeah.
we're
My
certainly
wife goes to bed pretty early. So sometimes it's just late nights where I'm just watching one of the MFL YouTube videos and just
yeah.
grind away at my own clubs. Um, yeah. Or sometimes it's I have a networking event at the middle of the night. And so I'll take some of the day. I make my own schedule so I can. That's a dangerous thing in MFL to
Yeah.
make a schedule.
Sure is. Sure is. Awesome. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up? I'll just to tell everybody, I told Jonathan absolutely nothing. I was just like, we're going to talk about MFL. And he was like, okay, sweet. And so, yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if there was anything that you thought that we would get to that we haven't yet.
I kind of touched on most of it, or all of it. I just had some more details as far as how young my agency was. We kind of talked on that, but yeah, I'm excited to see what my current dev jail players will develop into in the future. That's whenever I also think I might start selling off more players whenever those players become usable. But yeah, like I said, feel free to reach out if you want. I can't promise it'll be quick, but for now, I would say for the general population that's watching this, don't reach out about my players for a loan until at least a few days after we can actually sign players to our own clubs.
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem like I've seen a lot of people comment that they haven't gotten like any responses on trying to get loans. And it's like, I don't
Pre-contract.
think anybody's ready yet. They're just, yeah.
Yeah.
Pre-contracts scare me. I don't want to be locked in before I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, I would say maximize playing time as much as you can, but maximize whatever brings you joy in this game. I think a lot of people is pursuing that first place in the league or pursuing cup championships, trophies in general. Maybe it's individual player trophies. For me, I just love seeing my players grow, and that's why I check so many times in a day. But find what you love about the game and just pursue it. Maybe it's not trying to make your money back. Maybe it's just, hey, I understand this is basically buying a video game, and you're okay with not seeing that money again. For me, I have some of that too. Whereas if I don't get this money back, I've enjoyed the time that we've had. But yeah, I think everyone has their different objectives in this game, and that's a beautiful thing about it as well.
I think you sold it perfectly right there. Thank you everybody for coming. If you could please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. And yeah, for those of you watching on the MFL with Laird YouTube channel, thank you for doing so. Please make sure you subscribe there. And everybody who is on the other channel, go over to MFL with Laird. You can just search on YouTube. It'll be there. And then, yeah, anybody wants to support the content even more, patreon.com/Andrew M. Laird. Plenty more MFL stuff coming. I'm excited, and I haven't even done anything yet. So, Jonathan, really appreciate you taking all this time. And yeah, good luck on the final day and heading into season 5.
Appreciate it. Great being here. Thanks for having me.